Well, hello there.
Hello, hello.
I'm Richard Corbett,
And I am Brandy Jordan. Welcome.
and we thought we would do a little deep dive into the new moon that's taking place later this evening for us. We're recording this on Sunday around mid-morning, but the new moon is going to take place at 2:27 a.m. Monday, November 13th. So we've got a little ways to go. The sun is beating down right out our window here, and the moon is rapidly closing in on it.
Yeah.
So we want to take a look at that. And we thought what we'd start with is to pan out a little bit, just to kind of get the bigger picture of where we are astrologically right now that has led us up to this new moon in Scorpio we're going to have this evening. So I want to go ahead and share my screen. We'll take a look at what's going on here. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. We'll come back to this. This is the body graph and the astrological chart for the exact moment of the new moon. But where this particular chapter that we're in really started was back on October 14th, when we had our new moon solar eclipse in Libra. And, we were talking about, a lot about Libra at that time.
Yeah, a lot about relationships, a lot about balance, a lot about what was real and what wasn't in the balance in our relationships.
Yeah, harmony. The big thing that was happening, as we can see in the astrological wheel on the right, is that eclipse was opposite of Chiron in Aries. And so, if anyone was feeling anything to do with personal wounding, healing issues, relationship wounds, and healing issues.
And I think that's when it was about the relationships bringing light to the wounding that we still hold, and being able to bring it out and find what is balanced in that.
For sure. Now, if we go back even farther, about 6 months ago, when the sun was in Aries, it would have been conjunct Chiron. And that would have been around March and April. And so if anyone had anything going on around these issues back in the spring, this would have really brought that to light with this solar eclipse. Right?
I'm just giggling because I absolutely had that experience of a brought to light wounding that I didn't know existed anymore. And so it was a beautiful opportunity to work through it and to find love. And that's really what these codes, I call them, do, is they show us our opportunities to evolve and to move through some of the falsities that we carry in our bodies.
Yeah, for sure.
So it did. And I did.
The transits bring opportunities, right? It is the program. We always want to follow our strategy and authority on how we interact with the program in the world. This was definitely the theme of not only the spring of last year, but certainly this fall. And I think also looking at it, let's just look at it this way. So that was the solar eclipse in Libra. And then 2 weeks later,
lunar eclipse.
October 28th, we had the sun had left Libra and moved into Scorpio, and the moon was in Taurus.
So now that you balanced, let's get deep. Let's get darker and see how much more balance you can find.
That's what happened, right? And Libra at that solar eclipse is what may have kicked off any issues that may have come up surrounding this topic. But as the sun moved into Scorpio, that's exactly right. It was really an opportunity to go down into the depths of our inner world. And if you followed my transit report on Signpost on Mondays, I was speaking a lot about individual circuitry.
Right.
Even this week, I did a talk, and we'll look at this again today. We'll count them up. But out of the 13 activations in the body graph, 8 of them have been in individual gates. So just a really bringing a shining light, if you will, onto our individual inner nature.
Which I think is beautiful, because it gives us the voice to express what our personal truth of what we've been going through during this eclipse season. And so it's the opportunity for us to find our own personal knowing within that whole.
Absolutely. And Scorpio, to me, has so much resonance with individual circuitry.
Oh, for sure.
In the sign of Scorpio, of the 5 gates that are in that sign, 4 of them are individual gates. Right. So we're going to be talking about several of those more in depth today. But when we think about the fact that Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we're thinking about Pluto in terms of death, rebirth, transformation, mutation.
Yeah. And Mars
Mars bringing its energy that it always does.
Yeah.
You know, we do say in human design it can be our immature side, which is certainly true, but we also need our Mars.
Yeah.
Mars is how we express ourselves. That rules the sign of Aries, where Chiron is.
Right. And it's how we advocate for
Mhm.
ourselves, and it's how we protect our boundaries of the energy that's inside.
Yeah.
For sure. Mars is important.
And as we get to well, but we're still here. Let's stay here for a minute. With this was the full moon lunar eclipse on October 28th, and we talked also about, as we look at the chart, that Jupiter was conjunct the moon and opposite the sun during that. Mercury was conjunct the sun in Scorpio, and Mars was there too. So we talked about how the intensity.
Yeah, it was a party. There was a party of wounded darkness, but opportunities to bring it to the surface. I think that with Jupiter there where it is, I think that's the opportunity in Taurus to really ground the expansiveness of what can come from all that darkness, and really bring all of it without being overwhelmed, and see what can fit in the earth.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And let's go ahead and move to the chart for this new moon happening this evening for us. And as you're saying, I think that polarity of Scorpio and Taurus is valuable and important to highlight, because that Scorpio energy, fixed water, the deep within the deep, and we can go down there, and it's very melancholic. And again, that I think that resonates with the individual circuitry we were alluding to. But that Taurus being fixed to Earth, I think, when we talk about two fixed signs, having the eclipse and now the new moon, it brings that two fixed signs really brings a rigidity to it,
right?
And an intensity. But the Taurus being the fixed Earth, as you're sharing, I think that grounding is so important.
Well, and I think Taurian intensity and Scorpionic intensity are pretty similar, and so I love the protection, the balance, okay, this is what's really going on, and you can trust that this is happening right now, whatever that is. It's not like Mercury. It's like, it's solid, it's here, it's this is what's happening, let's watch it. I think I was saying that to you yesterday. I think Scorpionic stuff is just something to watch. It's not necessarily, and you'll see what is right come to the surface, or what is here to be worked on come to the surface, and that's what's to be grounded, without getting carried away in all of the darkness that exists.
And I think as well, with so much individual gates activated through the transits, that nurturing our creativity. This is a really special time to do that. I think any melancholic period, most everybody has some individuality in their body graph somewhere. And I've been sharing that as well, that this past month has been a really important time to be grounded in your creative process, whatever that is: writing, drawing, painting, yoga, meditation.
I giggle sometimes because I say this about melancholic channels, that if this were my queendom, that I would have a melancholy tower and it would have all the art supplies, and it would have furry walls, and it would have animals and books and music, and it would have everything. And so this is the time to go visit your melancholy tower, if you have one.
Absolutely.
Just see what comes.
Absolutely. Because even though this new moon tonight is not an eclipse, right? We had the solar eclipse, then we had the lunar eclipse. This next luminary event tonight, the new moon, is not an eclipse, but it's still in the sign of Scorpio.
And it's cleansing. I mean, new moons are cleansing. It is the time to move through things.
Whatever healing one may have been working on, or whatever the dynamic of the relationship that they've been dealing with. This is it's not a closing, right?
But a bump to the next spiral.
Yeah, I'd say it's like the next chapter. This new moon is offering the close of a chapter and the beginning of the next chapter, but it's still part of the same story.
Right.
I mean, we're going to move into Sagittarius with the sun here in about 10 days or so. And so we will be into...
Oh, and I love that part of the story, because Taurus is now giving us the opportunity to expand what we're grounding in the world, something new, whatever that is, so that we can bring it forward into our wanderlust, into our Sagittarian nature, into our, okay, now where can I take this? Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far ahead at the moment, but Mercury's in Sagittarius. So I think what we'll do is go down all the activations. But it's already there, bringing that Sagittarian communication.
Right.
And so, yeah, let's go ahead and I think there's so much more to share in this story, but let's kind of let's get into our layers here, and we'll see how this all ties together as we move forward. Yeah, we can start with the sun.
Okay.
Yeah, the sun in gate 43, line 2.
Dedication. I am taking a look at the Rave I Ching to get the exact keynotes. The maintenance of specialized attitudes, which promotes breakthrough. Unique mental habits and thought process, which promote insight. That is its exaltation. Its detriment is a dedication to action that when actualized is that when actualization is in sight may become incautious, the urge for expression that will abandon its normal process when an opportunity arises. So I think for me, I mean, this is a second line, so it's very natural. It's not something that is, but with a second line can be skillful and be able to polish their ability to be dedicated to the insights that have come through. So what this says to me is that maybe we're going to have some opportunities to sell ourselves down the river. And this is saying here, this is the sun in the second line. No, just allow your natural expression of your insights to come, and stay still with them. Stay with them.
Well, and speaking of that, staying still, line 1, which we were in just
yesterday.
Yeah, or today even. I actually we've moved into 2 already, I think, just to be specific. We're with the time we're recording this. But line 1 is the line of patience. So even though we're talking about the hexagram of breakthrough, and in the Rave I Ching, it's called the gate of insight, in this individual knowing, it speaks to the suddenness of it, this breakthrough idea, but yet it takes time, as individual circuitry does. Individual circuitry is a process. And the thing about lower trigram is that it's an individual process.
Right. That's what I was about to say. This breakthrough is about me. It's my breakthrough. It's my insight. It's not about an insight about others. And so sometimes we might think that in that lower trigram, it's not necessarily about expressing it to the other and being able to come into connection with somebody with your insight. It's about that insight resting or calming something inside of you that you were wrestling with. It's your own insight.
Yeah. And so again, I think as we think about intentions, which the new moon is always a beautiful time for that this is what the topic might be.
Right.
Nurturing that, providing space for what's coming through all these experiences, right? Again, it's really important, I think, that we think of the context of this new moon.
Right.
With
the experience, whatever it is that's happening. And remember, 43 is Scorpionic. So it's about me. It's about my darkness. It's about the deep within the deep of myself or you, Yeah.
Just real quick too, I love to read the tagline.
Oh yeah.
So we dove into the line there, but it's important to look at these taglines. And here it says for gate 43, in order for achievement to be maintained, a new order must be fairly established. And I think that word fairly is so interesting that Rod dropped that in there.
Yeah.
Scorpio is such an intense sign. It's interesting to use the word fair in Scorpio.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem like Scorpio would care about fair.
But it does. It does care about loyalty.
Right.
It's a very strong Scorpionic image is loyalty, because they're diving into the truth and they expect others to share their truth.
Yeah.
So the new order, there is some degree of wanting it to be fairly established. But again, I think the main thing I'm hearing from us is that it really is an individual situation right here.
Yes, it's about how do you be individuated in your relationships that you've just went through these tumultuous times with.
Right.
You found a new balance. You found your wounding, or you got rewounded in that relationship. You found your balance within it. Now we get to intend and then be that ourselves, individuated, and then allow the other to also be that. That's the balance.
Yes. And we're speaking about the sun here in gate 43, line 2. And so we just want to make sure we're adding the themes of the moon. The thing about a new moon is we're talking about the sun, which is of course, our life force energy. I think of it as our chi, how we shine out into the world. Well, the moon is our inner world. This is the reflective quality of the sun's light. That's how we recognize the moon. Yet here at a new moon, it's actually dark. Okay, but it really speaks to the extreme
Extremity,
nature
yeah.
of the sun shining out, and then the reflective quality of the inner world.
I think it's
joining
beautiful.
forces
Mhm.
together
In the same gate, in the same line,
Mhm.
on the new moon. Like I think that is such a beautiful portal.
Yes,
Portal.
yes,
Mhm.
and so while we're there, I think maybe the next one we'd have to look at before we go to the opposition
Mhm.
and talk about the position of the Earth and what's in Taurus. We can see over here in the chart that Mars is conjunct this
Yeah.
new moon within 2 degrees. And so again, Mars bringing this extreme power. And so it is in gate 43, line 4.
Uh-huh.
Let's take a look at
The
that.
one-tracked mind. The over-reliance and stubborn obsession with one's mental abilities in the face of recurring obstacles. This design, given mercurial mental gifts, may though rarely succeed. A stubborn reliance on one's unique insights that demands focused mental ability to be properly conceptualized. And this is where Mercury, or excuse me, no, moving on. In the detriment, a belief in inherent right action based on limited knowledge that shuns advice, the vanity to attempt expression without depth. And so I think this is that invitation again to sell yourself short or to stand up for yourself, either one, because these insights, this is moving now into the 4th line, which is transpersonal, which is now I want to share it. And so once that 43-2, that individual knowing comes and it's this new order is established within yourself. Now Mercury, right? Yeah, Mercury wants to come and talk about and tell everybody about it. And so that one-track mind in this gate of deafness could maybe not hear proper timing for the other to hear it. So what's coming alive for me is to invite us all to wait for proper timing, to remember to follow our strategy and authority, although we're so excited about this new order that's been established inside.
We're not only excited, but we're talking about Mars.
Right. Mars, so not Mercury. Yes.
Well, Mercury still wants to communicate
Yeah.
it, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, I think, because it's moved into Sagittarius, but it's still pretty close. From an astrological perspective, it'd be hard not to tie Mercury into this moon. I mean, it's 14 degrees, 12 degrees away, which is a little far for a conjunction, but not when you put it in the context of this story.
Right.
But before we go there, I think it's just, again, you were talking about line 4, which is the Mars. So having a Mars on a one-track mind, that can get a little volatile.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's helpful to be aware that there is a definitely an intensity, not only from the Scorpio, not only from the moon sun conjunction, but the fact that Mars is there as well. And it's also in the sign that it rules. And whenever a planet is in its domicile or the sign that it rules, it feels at home. And so it's very comfortable, which can sometimes be helpful and sometimes detrimental, because Mars is basically unchained here. It's not worried about the constraints of a sign that it's not so comfortable in. It can do whatever it wants. And so I think that does bring an element of volatility to be aware of in conversations with people. I mean, people can really just let you have it with their insights of what they think Xing should be.
Right. So could you.
Yeah. And it's very fixed. We're not, we've left behind the balance of Libra here. And things can go a little overboard.
And I want to offer something else, because I know that we keep speaking of these polarities, but when you follow your body's wisdom, your strategy, your authority, it doesn't matter if you are boisterous and very Mars with this 43. If you're following your body, it is the correct experience. So I don't want to give the idea that there's this binary, this right or wrong that we can fall within. It's just it's just being aware of what's happening allows you not to be hijacked by it and think that you've done something wrong and that you need to now make decisions to change it. It's just about watching yourself now be Mars and 43-4 and if it's bad timing or if it's, whatever it is, it's about watching that and seeing what it shows you.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I think if we go to the other side of the wheel and talk about, well, of course, the Earth is going to be exactly opposite that. So it's in gate 23, line 2. So now we can see that we're getting the channel of structuring, the design of individuality, also nicknamed genius to freak.
Yep, the gate of assimilation,
Mhm.
23. So assimilation is coming to meet 43 insights. So now could be the natural ability to ground your insights in these individual assimilated, starting from the beginning, moving all the way through, having someone understand your genius with right timing.
Now let's take a look at maybe the tagline for 23
Okay.
and then the detriment, because it is in the
All right.
detriment.
23, splitting apart. Amorality, the awareness and understanding which leads to the acceptance of diversity.
Now, again, I love to pick these taglines apart just because they are so deep and important. But when we think about this 23 and the individual voice, it says the acceptance of diversity.
Yeah.
So even though we're talking about one person's unique verbal expression of their gate 43 insight, it still speaks to this idea of accepting diversity,
Right.
which is really what hopefully we do with everybody's individuality.
And that is one of the steps in this individuation process that we get to master so that we can move forward in peace.
Yeah.
So it is so the need to abandon tolerance when survival is threatened. This is line 2. It's called self-defense. And in its exaltation, the principle of preservation at its most acute, the abandonment of tolerance when individual expression is threatened. Or in its detriment, where Jupiter will strike out to preserve its integrity, the moon is often satisfied with just projecting itself by fending off hostility. The defense of individual expression in the face of hostility. The defense of individual expression in the face of hostility. So goodness, there could be beautiful stories and, some scary stories told about 43-4, because we're all experiencing this, all of us. So if someone else's expression of their insights is something that feels intolerable, I could feel an impasse here in your relating.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm also seeing and hearing as you read that is that this line 2, we talked about, this is a very self-involved new moon
process,
right? Because it is lower trigram on both sides. And this strength here I see of self-defense in line 223 in the face of hostility. So again, that just makes that Mars to me in line 4, which wants to externalize a little more tenuous.
Yeah,
right?
He's a little...
Yeah. So it's just, again, I think to be mindful of the volatility that could arise between these exact placements.
Yeah. Learn to pause.
Yeah. and from there, so the Earth is at 23 line 2, which is going to be at 20 degrees 43 minutes of Taurus. So you can imagine the Earth being right here. So again, it really brings this Uranus into relief and importance because it is almost exact. I mean, for all practical purposes, it is exact. And of course, that puts Uranus
in 23-3.
Yeah.
This is, how often do these play with each other like this in such a big way?
Well, there's always something going on. We could do the research. It takes a little bit of math to statistically to look at this, but it is fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating.
I think, well, let's talk about it. Let's go ahead and read line 3.
Yeah. So if we're like moving through the story after we have found our way and are assimilating our own individual insights, now becomes the independent expression that is not by its nature detrimental to others. This line is called individuality. In its exaltation, vitality and personal power that can engender jealousy, but not threat. Individual expression, which attracts attention, but not threat. Or in its detriment, an individual mysteriousness that attracts active suspicion and threat. The freak individual expression that attracts suspicion and threat. This is like this feels, I know it's not, but it feels like Scorpion.
Right. Well, I can certainly hear third line here.
Yeah, for sure.
We're thinking about this experimentation,
right?
Bumping into things that it's really trying to be its own individuality, right? But it's it's fraught with a little trial and error. It could threaten others or not. It's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Giving us the energy to be able to be our individuated expression of self after all of this through trial and error. So understand it's not about, it's about bumping into everything until you find what feels right, not about getting it right the first time.
And so when we layer in the fact that it's Uranus
Right.
turning on gate 23, line 3, and we think about the planet Uranus, it is the planet of unusualness, sudden, extreme, dynamic change. I always think of lightning when I think of Uranus because it has that quality to it. And we just don't know. I call it the wild card in the deck of planets.
Yeah.
Right. It's sudden, it's out of nowhere. And so I also feel like Uranus in itself has a very strong resonance with individuality.
Right, for sure.
And so here we have it, not only in an individual gate, but we also have it defining the channel of structuring with this very potent new moon and Mars
next to the Earth. And Mars and so there's a lot of just nurturing from the cosmos to be able to be our individuated expression, to really speak and allow ourselves and the people who love us to hear our individuality.
Yeah. And so, maybe some helpful things that I'll be thinking about is that I think communicating with loved ones right now, friends and family, and soundboarding, right? Because we all have a potential that some unique insight's going to pop in with this very dynamic and Mars powerful, Uranus unusual, and sudden insights. They could be coming forth right now, certainly in regards to the story that we were starting with, that we're still in. Yeah. I also think it's fun to think about Uranus whenever I'm looking at its placement in the body graph. It takes 84 years to do one complete revolution around the sun for Uranus. And we have 64 gates in the body graph. So Uranus, if you get to live an average lifespan of 84 years, you're going to get to experience every gate with Uranus once in your lifetime. Right? That's how many times.
Powerful.
Yeah. So, and it stays in a gate for about a year and 3 or so months. Of course, we have the retrograde. So, it's not exact. I'm not saying that exactly, but it's over a year, more or less, in each gate once in a person's life.
Wow. That's pretty neat to think about.
And I think that's a good contemplation for this new moon, because wherever someone is, age or stage or season of life, this is a very unique opportunity to feel something new coming into their individual expression.
So gosh, what I would offer to that is just a falling into your tender places, right? To the visual I got is from coming to constriction into just we've got to allow the softness of our routines and what we think we know about everything. We've got to soften around the edges of all of that so that, this lightning can bring forth something that is beneficial to our individuality. So I think what came through to me there with all of this going on is that individual expression is mutative, and that can be scary sometimes. It can be really scary to say what you think if it's different. And we are all being invited into our difference. So we're all being invited to say what is different. Yeah. No, I and that really, again, in my mind, that's bringing back all of the things we think about with the nature of individual circuitry in our charts, because there is the pulse, there is the on and the off, there is the uncertainty, and that uncertainty, if left unchecked, can lead to fear. That's why Scorpio as a sign can bring that. We have Halloween, right? We have Day of the Dead, right? We have these holidays. We have in the Northern Hemisphere, we're definitely moving towards winter rapidly. The days are getting shorter. The leaves have already fallen off the trees out here. So the earth is withdrawing in and going into those deep plutonic depths. Brings a great deal of uncertainty and possible fear. But I really feel like the self-defense on that of the line 2 is nurturing and grounding ourselves into that creativity. Creative reflective exercises right now really support
eliminating fear, and
Right.
has tremendous biological health effects,
That's
right? I
right.
mean, fear is so damaging to our body, to our molecular, cellular
Absolutely.
makeup.
So whatever we can do, I mean, fear sends pharmacology into your body that activates your nervous system, your immune system, everything gets tightened. Some of your processes stop in your body. Sometimes your, blood's just pumps in your torso
Yeah,
instead of your, there's so many things that happen with fear.
yeah,
And this is why I feel like softening, and I feel like Jupiter in this expansion of this grounding energy, right? This Taurian, this what food is good, what feels good, what music is good, what can we expand in this juiciness of your nest, to be able to stay tender and excited about what's coming from the dark.
yeah. So let's keep going with that. So
Yeah.
Jupiter, you're talking about here in Taurus,
Mhm.
bringing us that expansive ability to ground into
Mhm.
everything we're saying, and
It's
it
in
is in
24.
it's in 24. So here we
Which
have
is rationalization.
another individual gate.
Right.
It's still moving retrograde. It's going to actually back up all the way into gate 27 eventually, before it turns direct. And then we'll get it back into 24, which I think is actually happening around February.
Mhm.
So we're still in these slower moving planets.
But what's so beautiful, if we continue the story, that you are, you're in your comfortable, grounded Taurian space. What 24 line 2 is the recognition. Well, we'll start. It's the gate of rationalization. It's the channel of awareness. The natural and spontaneous process of transformation and renewal, returning. Line 2 is recognition, and that's the proper and spontaneous adaptation of new forms, the potential gift of conceptualizing spontaneously. And at its detriment, it's the vanity to see transformation as a personal achievement rather than a socially supported or natural phenomenon. The mental vanity that the gift of conceptualizing spontaneously can produce. So what this, shares with me is that I know 24 very well. It's my personality sun. And so I know about the silence, about the importance of allowing my mind time to rest, of knowing that those gaps, those pulses, is what brings the recognition of a new truth, of a new form. But only in the rest, and only in the gap, and only in the silence will that come.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's lovely that Jupiter is here in that space to be able to expand that rest and silence, or the spinning mind, right? It can be either one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, speaking to that pulse again, that on and off, and again, not being resistant or fearful when the pulse is off, being
Right.
silent, being inward, being quiet. It is, in technical terms, we call it a potential awareness gate,
Right.
in individual circuitry. Now that's gonna be highlighted as we move forward, because if we go back to that solar eclipse we were talking about, that was in gate 28. I'm sorry, it was the lunar eclipse. I'm sorry. The
Yes.
lunar eclipse in Scorpio was in 28 2
Yes.
weeks ago.
Mhm.
Okay, which is also a potential awareness gate. There's only 3 potential awareness gates in individual circuitry: 28, 24 as we're talking about, and we're going to get down to Saturn, which is in gate 55. So again, just think of the emphasis placed on the potential of individual awareness
Yeah.
that is possible due to this eclipse season we've been having.
Richard and I were talking about this last night, and it made me feel so held. And so just keynoting these and seeing what story could happen, that when we trust our intuitive purpose, our intuitive knowing of what is purposeful, that the spirit comes through the pulse, through the rational, through the silence. The spirit comes. I mean, we can play it in all different kinds of ways, but it felt like a beautiful setup, a very benevolent time that was designed by whatever created us, for us to really know ourselves.
Yeah, and that is certainly part of the theme of this whole sharing here today. But yeah, so I feel like that eclipse in 28, with the sun in 28, that was really stimulating an instinctual awareness that we need to know about. And with Jupiter here in 24, we have this expansive capability to really let it keep returning and turning and
mhm.
going over and over and rationalizing what it could be. And now let's go down and talk about gate 55, the gate of emotional spirit, which is in Saturn. Now, Saturn had been also retrograde for quite a while. It turned forward last week,
Mhm.
and so it turned forward right in 0 degrees Pisces. So gate 55, gate of abundance,
Mhm.
gate of the spirit in the channel of emoting, the
Yeah.
design of moodiness. This is the provocative nature to be gate 39, to provoke our spirit,
That's
to be
right.
stimulated. And
Abundance is strictly a question of spirit. When I read that tagline the first time, I felt like it encapsulated every Buddhist and Zen teaching that I had from the very beginning. Abundance is strictly a question of spirit. How connected are you to the generous present moment? Because in this generous present moment, you are alive with every cell in your body as the spirit that is inhabiting this biology. And in this present moment, everything you need is there and you can see it only if you arrive in the moment. And in the moment is in the spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's saying a lot, because gate 55, being part of the individual emotional wave,
Mhm.
is very dynamic.
Yeah.
To say it very nicely, is that it has that spiking element
For
to
sure.
it, because we're joining the pulse of individuality and the solar plexus cyclical nature
Mhm.
of the wave. And so it can have this sharp up and down.
Right.
So to be able to experience what you're saying, the abundance at both ends of the wave,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of surrender
It
and
takes nervous
acceptance.
system regulation in each and every moment. And I think that I love that the universe, the codes are giving us the ability to practice doing this, because this is how we learn, is to bring ourselves into situations where the spike dysregulates us and we find our abundant spirit in that moment, because that is what is needed in the future. So we're getting opportunities to practice.
And I think if we think about it from the astrological side of the house here, if you will, Saturn being the planet of the taskmaster, father time,
Yep.
Saturn's always here to provide limitations and boundaries and experiences that offer the opportunity to align with our authentic path.
Right.
We don't often like the way it feels.
Uh-huh.
Saturn, I always say, it kind of gets a bad rap in modern pop astrology. But I think it really speaks to what you're sharing there again, which is surrendering and appreciating Saturn's role in our life.
Goodness, because without it, it's the key. It's the
Mhm.
thing that we don't want, but we really most need.
Yeah.
And so it's the thing that's always there for us. Like at the end of life, I would look back and think that the thing that I never wanted, but always stayed, was the most important thing that ever was.
That I couldn't agree more. And it's just something about, as we get a little older, we look back at life, and it was those challenges that helped us discover who we really are. We love the easy times in life. We love a cruisy Sunday like today. It feels pretty smooth and all, but it's the challenges that help us grow.
And this isn't the story we've come to write. The creator, we create movies with action and adventure and stories that we could never know. We would never watch a movie tiptoeing through the daisies.
How boring would that be? How boring would that be?
We need this excitement and Saturn to me is like is just that, okay, fine, tell me what I need to hear, but I don't want to hear. Okay, it's the key. It's the thing I always fall back on. 55-1. Through all of this, through 43-20, through all of this that's happening. And it's not just happening in me, but it's happening in you, and it's happening in you, and it's happening in everyone. And so in that case, the only thing that I can do to stay centered in me is 55-1. It's the key.
I think when we look at the overall makeup of the program right now, I really too appreciate that. To me, Saturn is the linchpin, as you're saying, to where do we go right now? Will we go with the stability of Saturn and Pisces? Now, in Pisces, of course, we're talking about ruled by Neptune. Pisces is the dream world, spirit world. It's limitless. Neptune as a planet is beyond the boundaries of Saturn. So it's that creative imagination.
Reminds me of mist.
And the sign of Pisces is the final astrological sign in the wheel, but it's not the ending.
Right.
It's simply it's involution and evolution, dissolution and creation.
Yeah.
It's really
It's the beginning
everything.
of the next one.
Yeah,
It's gate
right.
64.
It's an end and the beginning at the
Mhm.
same time,
Yeah.
which makes it neither, right?
Right.
It's something else.
Right.
So bringing the stability of Saturn into 0 degrees, so it's just again moving forward at the very beginning of this sign. I feel like it's a kind of like a handrail
Yeah.
into our creativity and imagination, and that's why it ties so much into what we were sharing before about nurturing this creative element is the handrail into our creative imagination.
Yeah.
And can provide that stability, because line 1 of 55, where Saturn is, called the line of cooperation.
Yeah. You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The expansion of activity through cooperation with powerful forces, through principled actions that guarantee continued support and engender prosperity. The potential to find the spirit through cooperation with powerful forces.
So again, cooperation with powerful forces. Now, Rod does not go on to say what those powerful forces are, but I think their life is what they are. They're other people.
Yeah.
They are the world,
whatever is dysregulating your system at the moment, whatever takes you out of the generous present moment of spirit embodied is the powerful force.
Cooperation makes me think of the term I've been using and borrowing from Lasita, which is spiritual equanimity.
Right.
In the face of adversity or fear or the up and down of the wave, the hope and this agony and ecstasy.
Because adaptation is what equals survival. And so if we can stay regulated and adapt and be equal and see both sides without polarity, that's survival.
Yeah.
That's how we move forward.
Yeah. So Saturn, I just really feel like it has a very unique role in this story that we're building here. And to add a little challenge, I guess, to all of that, we could go down here and look at Pluto, which is still moving through the latter degrees of Capricorn. It's finally moving direct after being retrograde for quite a long time. Turned direct October 8th or 10th, I want to say. It's going to dip its toes back into Aquarius early in 2024, but then it's going to go back into Capricorn for a large chunk of next year, and then won't fully be into Aquarius until next November. So we still have a full year of this back and forth here between the two astrological signs. And we can see here it's in gate 60, the gate of limitations.
Another individual gate.
Another individual
another pulse. And the pulses aren't necessarily the same, the 60 and the 24, or any of them for that matter. It's the gate of acceptance, the channel of mutation. It is the acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence. And I feel like this just lends exactly to what we've been talking about. Transcendence, we can, break that down to say transcending the chaos in the moment and becoming 55-1, the spirit in the now. That's transcendence, right? It's becoming aware of what is actually happening so you can stay still in the equanimity.
Yeah, and again, what a powerful tagline. Acceptance of limitation is the first step.
It's the first step. It is I know that my energy is eternal, this energy that animates this meat suit and this meat suit, but it is limited by this meat suit in this time, at this space. And so acceptance of any limitation, arriving and surrendering where we are at, is the only way to see where to go.
Yeah, well, speaking of seeing where to go, this also makes me want to back up a little bit in time, because most of the summer and early fall, Pluto was exactly squaring the nodal axis. We had, when the nodes were in gate 50 and gate 3, Pluto was squaring that exactly for quite a while, really putting this pressure of limitation on where we're going, right? Where are we going? And of course we could see this in the news with just like so much crisis, gate here we can mention Neptune too. Might as well throw
36,
Neptune in gate
goes.
36, right? Sort of this limitless crisis out there in the geopolitical news. Mars was part of this story with Pluto when it squared Mars on October 7th. That's when the Hamas invaded Israel. And so we had a second very tragic, horrific war in addition to Ukraine. So, not to get lost in this very triggering discussion of how scary things look out there, but these are powerful forces at play right now.
Absolutely. This is what Ra meant.
And there are there's only so much in any one person can do,
Right.
and we can all do something.
Right.
It's that concept of think globally, act locally.
That's right.
But to me, acting locally right now is going inward
Right.
to see what my voice is in the midst of all this.
Yes, bringing your abundant spirit to the fray, because if we all bring our individuated abundant spirits to the field, right? Everything, I mean, everything works the way it's supposed to work, and we can see what's for us in the moment.
Yeah.
And not just the geopolitical stage, but if we bring it into our worlds, I mean, there was myself and many people this summer that, nothing seemed to work easy. Nothing was easy. Nothing moved the way it was supposed to. But when myself and others, when I saw that we accepted what was happening, there was joy, there was tenderness, there was gifts in the moment that were shown to us, that limitation, if we kept our eyes on the feeling of being limited instead of arriving where it was, we wouldn't have seen it.
And this mutation, with Pluto in the gate 60 in the channel of mutation. In fact, when I was looking at the body graph, so I typically only use the black activations because that is the current weather, right? Whenever I'm looking at astrological weather and the transit field, and I do my reports, I'm using the personality side of the body graph, which is what we're looking at in the astrological wheel. When I look at events, though, I like to look at the body graph with the black and the red. If we're thinking about a wedding or starting a business or a car accident, I mean, any event, I like to look at the black and the red. Well, a new moon is an event.
Yeah.
And we could have easily put the red up here. I did look at it. It didn't, the only channel that it brought in to the transit field was actually the channel of mutation, right? Because it was picking up the 3, which was there previously. Yeah.
And so one of the reasons you look at the red in events is because the red has a seed or a depth or a something that is coming from 88 degrees ago into the storyline now. And the black is, the black is how it's expressing itself, that seed that was planted. So that tells the story together with events rather than just the day.
Yeah. And so again, just bringing an overall theme of deep mutation.
Right. And play, I want to add deep mutation, but 60 and 3, I believe in its exalted state, is meant to be this most playful child, this most fun little squirrel energy, this, oh, can I go over here? No. Oh, can I go over here? Oh, can I do it here? Can I? And then when the pulse is on, I'm looking and I'm bumping into things and I'm experimenting and I'm having a great time. I'm not taking it seriously. I'm not being pessimistic that I'm never going to find it, but I'm just allowing myself to be the dynamic fire and taste whatever is in my field, and then come back to limitation and silence. Even if it feels, melancholy is not depression. There's a complete difference between the two, and allowing the melancholy, there can be, like you call it, sweetness. I think there is such a sweetness in melancholy. It's like the twilight stage right before wakefulness and sleep, that sweetness of that liminal space of not having really anything moving, but being able to experience what you have been doing.
Yeah, really beautifully shared, I think. And that's certainly moving all this energy into an exalted state, this playful and creativity. Let's see, there's 2 planets we haven't really focused in on, but let's go ahead and talk about Mercury, which is, as I was saying, it is really tied into all this. Even though it's moved into another sign, it certainly has what it wants to say, being the planet of communication, intellectual stimulation. Yeah, and it's in gate 34.
Line 5, single-mindedness.
The gate of power.
Yeah, the gate of the wrong one.
Line 5, I think, is the line of annihilation.
Yes,
pretty heavy.
Annihilation. The tagline is, power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. Power is only great when its display or use.
I just want to say again, we've been reading all these individual gate taglines, and every one that we've read has taken in consideration other people.
The collective, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So the individual road is uncertain. It can be hard to get it out. The collective and the tribal are always, in a sense, repressing the individual
Yes.
because it's not normal, it's unusual, but it is leading us into evolution.
Absolutely.
But there can be this resistance. But here, even in gate 34, which is such a power, the power of life force energy to individuate, this idea of serves the common good.
Right.
And in line 5, this line of practicality, here we get a annihilation, which sounds a bit of a detriment, but go ahead and
the total elimination of resistance, the power to destroy completely. And once this is accomplished, the ability to transfer the power to normal purposes, the resistance to release power other than when necessary. The resistance, that is the holding, that is the wisdom to know that you have the power to destroy and not destroying.
Yeah.
That sounds okay. So then in its detriment, it is the difficulty in shedding the patterns established to deal with resistance, symbolized by its phases, the feeling that nothing is permanently annihilated, the discomfort with the need to always release your power.
Yeah. So with Mercury here, again, this is this strong ability to communicate with power. And it's in Sagittarius, which is related to the 9th house. And this is a fire sign, and it's about higher mind, other lands, it's great travel, this expansive philosophical. Mercury is actually in its detriment in Sagittarius because it rules Gemini, the opposite sign, and Virgo. But here it's in its it's a bit limited in that. So Mercury really likes the details, and it's fast and it's quick. Whereas with Sagittarius, it's more philosophical. It's not about exact details. It's a belief or an idea. And so there again can be this expression from the transit and maybe other people that they want to be philosophical about what this means to them. But that's going to be coming out with the power of gate 34.
Right.
We're going to all have the tendency to share emphatically.
Right. Eliminate the resistance to our power without destroying completely. And that, I think that just speaks back to arriving in the moment and being the abundant spirit within the limitation of whatever is happening, with right timing, following your body and allowing your melancholy to bring the truth.
Yeah. I like that. And then the other planet we haven't touched on too much yet was Venus. Now, Venus has recently moved into Libra, which is, it rules Libra, but also Taurus. Okay. And so nice for the planets in Taurus, Uranus and Jupiter, because the sign that they're in is ruled by Venus, which is in Libra. Now here in the body graph, we have it in gate 18.
Yeah. The gate of correction. Work on what's been spoiled.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, go ahead if you want to read the, go ahead and read the tagline and let's start.
The vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic and fundamental human rights. So again, right back to the other.
Yeah, to the other. We are in collective circuitry now. So this is something where we share with others. This is the instinctual awareness to share correction and improvement, I think is a word we could use as well. And it's in the line too. So rather self-involved, trying to, again, back to this story of what is my voice of correction.
And accepting that, well, in line 2, terminal disease, accepting that there are things that cannot be corrected. Well, arriving there.
Right. And that's the line 2 is one of those lines whenever anyone first reads it, it's like, what the heck are we talking about here? But what we're talking about is acceptance.
Right.
And this is line 2's natural ability to always see what needs corrected. And if you have the ability to always see what needs corrected, that can be a little sad because there's so much
to have to always see it and know that it
can't be. I mean, it brings us right back to the word acceptance.
It's right,
which we've now circled back on several of these activations, leading us back to this idea of acceptance within our individual nature, what we see, what we do, the challenges we're up against.
And I love that you just brought that up, because the acceptance and strength derived from a faith in spiritual regeneration. What this says to me is, even though I have the eyes to see what needs to be corrected and nothing can be corrected, that helplessness that could feel like, or hopelessness that could feel like, that brings you back into spirit. And to me, a second line is spirit, right? So it just points the second line back into itself to remember that this creation, that these spirit embodied, correction is not that serious.
Feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, even though it does, right? Because in the first line, it feels super serious.
Yeah.
In the second line, we get to be the binary of that and just, yeah, I can see it, and it's not that big of a deal, maybe.
Yeah.
Or,
well, with acceptance, we can.
right, with acceptance, or the futile raging against the wind, the refusal to accept that there is no potential for correction. So this could be, gosh, the refusal to accept. That's just a suffering life.
Yeah, yeah. And not where we want to get stuck,
right,
with all of this energy that we've been talking
for
about.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So how exciting that the stage is set in that way.
Well, and let's wrap it up with this whole story we've been doing. Let's just take a quick look at the nodes here. North node in gate 42 in Aries. But let's start with the south node. Kind of, again, the idea being where we're coming from. So gate 32, the gate of continuity, also called the gate of duration. It's in tribal circuitry over here in the splenic awareness center, in the channel of transformation. And this is the 32 is all the splenic gates do carry a fear to it. Here it is the fear of failure. And we're specifically talking about the failure of the tribe. I can't help but think of these wars again. This is the existential fear that my community is no longer going to exist. And that is a deep genetic fear that we have lived with for thousands of years. I mean, since the beginning of time, and it does drive us to transform based on that fear. So that would be the healthy side of it. But in its extreme negative manifestations, I think it creates wars like what we're seeing.
That's right.
Where there's a feeling of a lack of resource and fear that we're not going to exist anymore.
Right.
And so that's the south node. And so the idea of we're certainly coming from there. We can say that.
Well, it's the easy in the fifth line, it's flexibility. Oh, well, I'll read the tagline. The only thing which endures is change.
Yeah.
And so speaking to what you were saying, if I think my tribe is not going to exist, I am going to fight. I mean, that spleen is primal. It's about survival. It's about me or you.
Yeah. And if we look to the other, or go ahead, keep going.
Okay, sorry. Easy adaptation to circumstances. The moon exalted, where superficiality is a valuable tool that, while masking the inner light, permits adaptation to prevailing conditions, an instinct for adaptation in times of change, or the urge to express oneself in direct and often violent rejection of conformity, the potential of the instinct to reject adaptation and conformity in times of change. So even I love that it talks about superficiality, because it's saying that that although this inner light, this thing, this whatever, this tribe, if we're going back to the tribe, being able to persevere, to bring, the other side of this into it, to be able to persevere through whatever is going on, is the thing that will keep you alive, keep your tribe alive.
Yeah. And if we look forward to the north node, with the idea of this could be where we're heading, where we're looking towards, where's this driving us to? It's in gate 42, the gate of growth. This is in the channel of maturation, a design. It's all about the beginnings, middles, and ends, right? The growth and expansion of these solar plexus world, right? Because this is the formatting channel of the sensing or abstract circuitry, which is associated with the solar plexus and the cyclical nature of life, that through taking our time, going through the limitations and challenges of life, that we go into a cycle through the beginnings, the middles, and ends, the high hopes and excitement of what it could be, the despair and the fear of what it may not be, eventually through living through that with our balance and harmony and gate 55 equanimity, if you will.
Abundance of equanimity.
There can be great maturity through that. And gate 42, another word for that to me is evolution. This is where the possibility of where we could be moving forward.
The energy to evolve. So it's like it's available to you to grab off the shelf. And it's in the fifth line of self-actualization,
Mhm.
which just puts like a cherry, I feel like, on the top of the whole thing. The expansion of the resources, which maximizes the development of full potential. I mean, so the expansion of resources, which maximizes the development of self-actualization. So everything is here, it's on the table for you to see, be in the moment, be in your spirit, be accepting of the limitations that we feel,
Mhm.
allow the silence and the melancholy and the timing of your truth to be heard.
Mhm.
That is self-actualization.
Yeah, yeah,
That is the
beautiful.
maturity or the evolution. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a good day for playful creativity.
Yes. Yes.
For the remaining afternoon we've got. Again, this exact moment will not be till 2:27 a.m., which
Mhm.
will be Monday, November 13th when we
Mhm.
get there. But some really good, I think, some things to contemplate and
I think so too.
mm,
And just invitations, invitations to be aware
mhm,
and
mhm,
to not take it personally, and to
yeah,
know that it's mechanically designed in your favor to bring you forward into your greatest individualized truth.
exactly, yeah, absolutely, and the intention of that, and
Mhm.
to set intentions and release them with the acceptance that they will be. Right, we
Right.
have to release intentions.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
We have to, lots of different religions have called it different things, but have faith
mhm,
to know that you are the creator of that perception. And
mhm.
so when you decide and you speak in intention out into the world from your larynx,
From your
that
channel of structuring right now.
right, right, that creates a geometry in the field that is your truth.
Mhm,
So let that be heard.
pretty powerful.
Hmm. Thanks for being here,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you all.
See you in maybe 2 weeks.
Have a great new moon.
Bye.
Bye for now.